Second.
All right. Welcome. Welcome to the Anyone Can Farm live chat. I'm Mark, your host, and tonight is our interview night. We're doing a little bit different. I have with me Haven DeZeeuw. Haven is a neighbor of mine, lives about the next town over, I'd say. It's a different town, isn't it, Lucas? And we go back, I think, about 3 years now.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you say?
Yep.
And I met Haven for the first time at the Rogue Food Conference in Kentucky or Tennessee?
I think it was Kentucky.
Kentucky.
Just on the other side of the Ohio River.
Yeah, could
I think
be.
it was Kentucky.
And I did not know Haven. I'd never met him personally, but my kids knew him. And we've had some things in common ever since. And Haven's come to the farm probably about near 10 times for different classes and events and things like that. And he's always a guy that we can count on to move our mission down the road. And so without further ado, okay, today is the 22nd of December, 2022. So we're getting close to the end here, you guys. A lot of people have asked me to do little stand-in cameos about why we should be optimistic going into 2023. And so I thought we would kind of weave that in to this presentation. Haven and I have really had no conversation about what we're going to talk about beforehand, other than I have some notes that Haven submitted to Jill. And we've just been sitting out in the other room yakking it up for about the last half hour. But well, let's just see where it goes. And I think we'll start off by letting you tell your story, like where you were and how you wound up going down this road.
Okay.
Because it's a very interesting story. I think this is going to be quite unique, you guys.
Yep.
Okay, so let's give Haven the floor here.
I guess it would have started several years ago, probably 4 or 5 years ago. My dad started thinking about how he could start including us in the business more. He owns the dairy farm that a lot of us siblings work on. And he was trying to figure out how to diversify maybe a little into things that we were more apt to want to get into, because some of us weren't as gung-ho about taking over the whole operation, the whole dairy operation. And so he started looking at different forms of agriculture. And so he found Gabe Brown's book, Dirt to Soil. And he said, that's required reading for all of you kids. He's like, I've read it. It's a good book. You all have to read it. And so we read it and we're introduced to names like Joel Salatin and what's the guy up in Missouri? He's got all those brown cattle. He's got a grazing operation up there. Greg Judy.
Yeah.
Greg Judy. Yep. And Joel Salatin, like I said. And so I started reading Joel Salatin's books and read Pastured Poultry Profits, and then discovered that there's this guy that's been doing it close to where I'm at for a long time. And I knew about you and your family for a long time. I think I had one of your sons in youth group as a youth student. And so got turned on to you guys, found your videos, started learning through that. This a little closer. And thought that pastured poultry was definitely something that we were capable of doing. And so we started looking at how we would do that. There wasn't a whole lot of information out there as to like what equipment you'd like, specifically what equipment you needed and like what the startup costs were for something like that. And so we just kind of jumped into it feet first, read a lot of books, watched a lot of YouTube videos. And in 2020, we decided we were going to start raising pastured poultry. And that summer we ended up doing 900 broilers and processing them all ourselves. And it went way better than I ever imagined it would have gone. It went really smooth, which is not common, but we were really blessed to have the information and the right people around us to make it work really well.
Yeah.
So that was really encouraging. And so then after that, just started learning more and more. We added layers the following year in like a mobile pastured eggmobile type deal.
Yeah.
And just from there, it's something I've been really interested in. I've always wanted to farm, even if it wasn't as a career, but I had sort of started giving up on that idea because I thought farming was just what our farm was, the dairy farm. And I'm like, this isn't really my cup of tea. You know, I don't really like debt. I don't really like that amount of risk that's kind of inherent in an operation that large, especially when it's run conventionally like it is. And so I was really looking for something else I could do that was still farming. And then this kind of came up at the perfect time. So I've been really blessed in that. So yeah, that's where I'm at now. We're raising pastured poultry, and I work full time on the farm.
Okay.
And then that pastured poultry was kind of that was a side venture in all my spare time and my siblings' spare time. Yeah.
Can you, for the listening audience, I know what the farm is, but can you explain the farm?
Yeah.
It's your folks
Yep.
now. It was your grandfather's, right?
Yep.
And okay, can you explain what that's like?
Yeah. So it's a pretty large dairy. We live in Missaukee County, which has more cows than people. Probably a lot more cows than there are people. Yeah. Our farm is a conventional dairy, and we milk currently it's about 1,800 cows 3 times a day. And I think we're at about 3,500 head total between young cattle and bred heifers and milking and all that. And we've got different farms around the county that have heifers and some young cattle, but all the milking cattle are at the home farm, and that's where I work full time. I'm I guess you'd call it, young cattle facilities manager, right? Put that on my shirt. Sounds fancy, don't it?
Yeah.
I basically just make sure all the young cattle are bedded. Any pen that's bedded with straw or sawdust, that's my responsibility to make sure that they're nice and dry and warm and taken care of. And then I feed some young cattle and lots of odd jobs depending on the season.
How long have you been there?
My whole life.
Okay.
I've been working there since before I got paid for it. So ever since I was a kid.
What age are you working there?
I mean, my earliest memories are doing chores. So washing buckets after we fed calves milk, or forking hay up to young cattle, stacking square bales, firewood, all that stuff.
Yeah. My earliest memory of the name of Haven's Folks Farm is Many Blessings Dairy. When I first got here, I couldn't have been here 2 weeks. And I wound up working for Dale Dieterman and driving silage trucks. And we were working over at the home farm. And silage is corn that's cut and then ground up or chipped up or shredded, I guess. And I remember there was this guy sitting on a tractor, and he was pushing that silage up. And then he would stop, and then he would just sit there, right? And I was just coming out of the military, and I said to myself, I wonder who that guy thinks he is, just sitting there, you know? Turns out it was his dad, Ken. And later on, I met him when we started our chicken butchering operation, and he was one of 2 people that took an interest in something that we were doing. And he said, I've thought about changing what I'm doing a little bit. He said, I don't know why we're not making cheese with our milk or something like that. Mm-hmm. And that was early on. And I thought, whoa, maybe there's quite a few people around here that are entrepreneurial and wanting to do different things. Turns out it was him, and the other guy I talked to was Brinks.
Oh, yeah.
I don't remember his first name, but he wound up doing something like that, and he's doing it now. But most of the guys with these dairy operations, it's quite standardized, would you say?
It's a proven system. It's very efficient.
Yeah.
And there's things that work really well in most most people do it generally the same way,
Mhm.
conventionally. Yeah.
Mhm. Although when I got here, I even worked at an 80 cow dairy.
Those are pretty rare now.
They're pretty rare.
Yeah.
We have one. Our neighbors have one, but that's the only one I can really think of.
Yeah.
And who knows where that'll go? Maybe
Yeah.
it'll catch up in time, and we'll go back to the 80 cow dairy for a while. Who knows? All right. So for you to kind of break and go over to some other discipline, how did that happen? What was the threshold?
Well, I knew I had decided that conventional farming was something I was not going to do. I decided that whatever I wanted to do, whatever type of farming I wanted to be eventually doing, I knew that that probably wasn't it. And so we did a lot of reading, saw Joel Salatin, and I mean, we were really lucky that
Who's we?
Me and my siblings.
Yeah.
Me and my siblings, we're really lucky that we're in a time now where, I mean, everything you need to know to farm the way you farm or Joel farms or Greg Judy farms, all that information you can get for free if you put the time in to get it. And so we were really blessed to where a lot of the mistakes other people had made, we didn't have to make those because they said, hey, don't do this. And so we had a long list of things to do and a long list of things not to do.
Yeah.
That was very helpful.
Yeah.
And so I decided that it was something we were going to try. We wanted to raise some broilers as a test, right? We're like, I think we're capable of doing it. Other people have done it. So it's not like we can say, well, it can't work here, because we knew you were doing it and a lot of other people were. And so we went ahead and raised those 900 the first year. I still don't know how we did it. It's a blur. It's kind of crazy that went so well. I still can't believe it. But we ate the chicken, and the chicken tasted better than any other chicken we'd ever had.
Yeah.
And the chickens seemed happier, and it's a really beautiful setup. I mean, it's not always sunshine and roses when it rains or if it's 100 degrees, but you go out there and the animals seem happy. They're eating grass, and it just felt right. It felt right. And then we got the layers the next year, and the eggs tasted better than the ones that you get in the store. And then we raised some pigs. We didn't do it on pasture. Those were in a pen at the farm on deep bedding, but those were raised on corn, soy, and lots of milk from the parlor. And then we had that, and that was better than any pork that we had ever had. And so we started discovering that this food tastes better. It seems like the animals enjoy it more, and it's a beautiful thing, I think. And it was very attractive visually and financially, in that we didn't have a penny in debt at all. We started all this with nothing, never took out a loan. And in our first year, we were able to pay off all of our equipment purchases, all of our feed costs, chick costs, all that stuff, and break even in the first year. And we're like, there's no other type of farming where you can do that. And it's a lot of work, but it's not like there's nothing at the end of the road. There's reward for your work.
So what I'm hearing, as somebody from the outside, and I've gotten to know quite a few farm families in Missaukee County, to make that break from conventional farming, for people who are not farm families and don't know farm families, that's not something you just kind of decide to do. That takes a lot of thought.
Well,
and
I don't really care what other people think.
Yeah.
I knew it was a good decision, and all of us siblings agreed, and my dad was like all gung ho. He's like, I think this is a good idea.
That's the part that intrigues me right there.
Yeah. Yep. It all started with him. Yeah. He's the one who said, there's this other way out there that might be more your style. If this farm isn't something you want to get into, this might be. And so he turned us onto that.
Now,
And
how
those
did
are-
he know? How did he know about this other way? I'm curious.
I'm not sure who suggested that book to him. I think he might have read an article and heard the name Gabe Brown and looked up the book, but somehow he got that book and read it. My dad's a prolific reader. He'll read a book a day if he's got it. I don't know. He's a wizard.
Yeah, he's a leader in this county
Yeah.
as far as dairy goes.
Yeah.
And he's highly respected.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, what was Many Blessings back when, Many Blessings being the name of the farm, what was the configuration of that when your grandparents had it?
So
It wasn't 1,800 cows,
Oh, no.
probably.
no, I mean, it was probably I think that farm, when my grandfather bought it, it was 15 head. I think it was 15 milking. And then when my dad started taking over, I should know this, but I'm not quite sure. I want to say 120, maybe around 100, give or take. And then, so a big turning point was in, I think it was 2007. We had a barn fire that,
I remember that well.
yeah, that took out our parlor and our commodity barn where we had all of our straw.
Yeah.
I think we had a lot of hay in there. That happened in October. And so after that, it was either do something else or go big.
Yeah.
Because the only way that we were going to be able to keep milking cows is if we really went for it and had the volume to pay off the capital cost of starting over. And so we decided to go big. And so at the time of the fire, I think we were milking 200 or 300. And then that was in 2007. So between 2007 and now, we've really exploded. So I got to see the farm go from 200 cows to almost 2,000 and see how that wasn't really something that I wanted to get involved with long term.
Yeah.
I said, this is very mechanical.
Yeah.
A lot of things have changed. It feels more like it's a machine.
Yeah.
Not that it wasn't a machine when it was smaller, but especially in the past several years, I mean, your profit margin is so thin that, I mean, you're cutting wherever you can cut. You are getting as efficient as you can get wherever you can just to make it work. So
I'm wondering if your father hadn't experienced the other kind of farming as a child on the farm, if it was, 120 when he took over. I'm assuming he was probably in his mid-20s.
20s, yeah, early 30s.
Yeah.
I think.
So there was a time when he lived there with your grandparents and they had maybe 40 cows or 30 cows or something like that. If it was 15 when your grandpa took it over.
Right. I would imagine.
It'd be.
I should know this.
Yeah.
But
it'd be interesting to know because it's like when I heard all this from Haven and it really made me scratch my head because prior to that, there was almost a disdain for farmers who were doing things differently. Almost like you're just a dope smoking hippie. You just don't want to work. And I even see this to this day. You'll hear like my kids had a young friend over, and his dad's got a really big farm, a lot of big equipment, and he feels as though if you're doing farm work with hand tools, that ain't really farming. That's how he feels. He says, if you're not on a tractor, you're not really farming. And it's got to be a big tractor too. That's this little boy's perspective on farming. And he thinks the kind of farming that we do is hobby farming. He says that. And so that attitude still prevails, but it's changing.
it is.
And you're willing to call it. You're calling it out and taking the hits where they come, and it's not bothering you at all. There's not a lot of guys that will do that. because you have to be on board with the system, to hopefully get the payout someday, I guess. I think that's what they assume. But I appreciate you doing this, because it seems as though the things that you want out of life are like more than just the bottom line on it. It seems to be more than that. And I would speculate that your dad probably remembers what it was like when this farm was small, and maybe life was simpler. And I wonder, but I would bet on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't see calendars with the great big farms on them, and all the drainage and all the ugliness.
Right.
You always see the small farm with a little boy driving a tractor or something like that. That's what you see. So I appreciate what you said about your chicken operation, and that it was a beautiful thing. That's quite a statement right there. That's quite a statement, because there's a lot of things that are not beautiful, and that they're not beautiful. And then when you come across something that just takes you and says, wow, I like that. That makes me feel good when I see that. So let's see, where do we want to go from here? I don't think that it needs to be. I mean, this is an indicator that this is not a us and them type thing. And you wrote something in your notes that I thought was interesting when I read through this. I think each side can learn a lot and give a lot to each other. And I had not thought of that. I really had not thought of that, because I come into farming as somebody that knew neither side, had one foot in both camp, trying to decide what I was going to do. I don't know if you've heard my story, but Jim Lambert said to me, hey, you know what? You ought to put hog houses on your property. You can make $60,000 a year off each house. And I said, really? He says, yeah. And, our families know each other, and he's more conventional farming minded. Yeah, you can do really good with that. And when I met Joel Salatin for the first time, I was in the process of building hog houses on my back 40. Preliminary stages, I mean, we'd done soil tests and site survey, but the company that we would have been growing hogs for, they already came and looked at the property and said, yeah, let's do this. So I was kind of thinking, yeah, I don't really want to do this, but 60,000 a house, sure, I can do that. Because at the time I thought money was everything, because I'd been military and had no money for 20 years. And I just kept thinking, oh, on the other side of the fence, that's where the green grows, and that's what I want. But I've found that that's not the case, really. All right, so maybe you have something in mind where you say, I think each side can learn a lot and give a lot to the other. Have you got something in mind that we could discuss on that?
Yeah, I'm in a lot of Facebook groups, like regenerative farming, homestead Facebook groups. And whenever the subject of factory farming comes up, I see a lot of straw man arguments. And I'm in a lot of conventional farming Facebook groups. And whenever you see regenerative farming come up, you see a lot of straw man arguments, each side attacking the weakest parts of the other, and not really looking at it as a whole and saying, like, what are the true motivations of the people on each side? It's always the conventional farmer is evil and only cares about money and knows that they're making poisonous food, and they think that's a good thing, or they at least don't think it's bad, but they know it's poisonous and they know that it's, harmful, but they're still doing it. And then the conventional farmer will look at the regenerative farmer and say, well, that's just a hobby farm, right? You can't make any money doing that. A lot of them don't even know how to farm. They're just city people who want some eggs and get some chickens and let them run out of water and starve them to death, and they don't really know what they're doing. But as a whole, that's really not true. As I've seen, having a foot in both camps, I see that conventional farmers are caring, loving people who are invested in the land that they're farming. And I see the same thing about regenerative farmers. And I think if you're a regenerative farmer or homesteader or regenerative farm friendly, I mean, wouldn't you want to like convince a conventional, like, wouldn't that be like the epitome of your mission to like convince one of the big guys to join your side? I think that's valuable, and I think that that's a goal that a lot of people should have, at least just understanding the motivations of each side, and that you can have a positive impact. And like each side has valuable things, like conventional farming, lots of efficiency, lots of design, lots of kind of the numbers and economics, where sometimes regenerative farmers aren't as, detail oriented a lot of times, but the pencil work really matters a lot, and financial planning and all that. And the regenerative people have a lot of value in that they're aware of, food nutrition, and they say, well, this type of farming is better in all these different ways. And I think they're right. It's better financially and nutritionally and relationally. Again, community-wise, you have more of a community, and it tends to draw people into the farm as it's an attractive thing and it's interesting. Whereas conventional farming can, people kind of literally turn up their nose at it. But I think there'd be a lot to gain on both sides if we came together and said, we're all people. Let's try to find a solution and try to be reasonable, because I mean, my dad reading these books, he's like, I wish someone would have given me this book 30 years ago. Said, I wish someone would have came up and said, you need to read these. And I think a lot of conventional farmers would agree, especially their kids. Because now in conventional farming, what you have is the average age of the American farmer is 60, and it's going up every year, and less young people are getting into it. Major reasons are debt. They can't finance it. A lot of these farms are so big that even if one of their kids wanted to take it over, they wouldn't be able to pay the taxes to take it over or take on the debt. And so a lot of young farmers are just getting out, and these farms are getting bigger and bigger, and there's becoming less and less of them. And so I think the regenerative farming practices are going to be very attractive to those people to say, here's an alternative that you don't need $1 million to do. And there's marginal pieces of land on every conventional farm that can't be used to grow corn and soybeans, but would be perfect to have chickens on, or some pig pastures, or to graze a couple beef. And I think that, because I know myself, I was in that situation. I'm like, I might be able to take this operation over, but that's not really something I want to do. It's nothing like it was when my dad took it over. It's 10 times bigger. And I don't feel like I'm 10 times more prepared or 10 times more motivated. And I'm pretty risk averse. So that's just not the style that I would want to get involved with. But regenerative farming came in at the perfect time to say, hey, here's an alternative that is, you can add on to it or take away from it. It's, modular. So if you want to raise more chickens, you just spend $500 and make a few more tractors. And if you don't want to grow chickens, you're out a few $100s, and you just don't have a chicken house standing there that you got to pay taxes on and property taxes and all that. So I think it's a really good fit for this next generation of farmers, both regenerative and conventional farm kids, who are saying this isn't the life that I want to live, but I want to farm. And there's so many kids who have just said, well, I guess I can't farm because this is farming. And so I think it's a message that I'm so glad that I heard, saying, hey, here's an alternative. And I think if all the farm kids in America heard that, hey, there's something else here that you can do, that you can start a seedling here and grow it, and maybe eventually take over that conventionally farmed acreage and farm it this way.
When you say conventional, what would be the alternative? Would be traditional?
I'd say
Is that a
regenerative, maybe
regenerative?
conventional.
What does regenerative mean to you, for the audience here?
Yeah. Well, it's funny that you say for me, because there's lots of.
Yeah, but you're articulating things very well for this audience, I believe. Yeah.
So I would say regenerative farming, to me, what I would include in that definition would be farming that improves the land that it's on, and farming that improves the economy of the people farming that way, and builds the community and is a benefit to the neighbors in the community that it's in.
Okay.
And I think it's a good thing that the regenerative definition isn't a label yet, like organic. Mm-hmm. I think it's good that it's broad, right? Because your farming, I would call regenerative, like your chicken shelters, that's regenerative. But if, say, a conventional farm kid had chicken tractors and was growing broilers but fed them GMO feed and processed them himself and sold them, I would still call that regenerative.
I would too.
Say you have a farm kid who's growing pastured poultry and is feeding them GMO corn and soy in shelters, but he sends them to a USDA plant to get processed. I think that's regenerative farming. Might not be regenerative processing, but it's regenerative farming as far as the land goes. And so, but there's a lot of people who would say that's not really regenerative, right? You're feeding a GMO feed. Say you move the shelter every 2 days instead of every 1 day. Some people would say, oh, that's not really regenerative. But I think it's beneficial to keep the definition large so that it includes more people. I think if you have such a narrow definition where we feed our chickens organically raised grasshoppers, that were catched by people wearing Birkenstocks and had their hair in ponytails, and that's the only thing they eat, you're going to exclude a lot of people who could benefit the land and their communities and their economy and the future of farming if you keep that definition large. Not so large, but I think it's been too much of a exclusive definition, and I think it should be more inclusive.
Okay. Yeah. Well, organic started off that way. All you had to have was a pair of Birkenstocks and a ponytail, and you were good to go. But then the USDA said, "Oh no, we've got to standardize this."
Right.
And it was a lot of the aspects of organic farming are nebulous, so they only could standardize the things that were non-nebulous.
Mm-hmm.
And they really had to stretch. Like I remember they came out and looked at this, and because at one time I thought, oh, we need to do that. And there's like, oh, these corner posts, they've got creosote on them, they got to go. And what does that matter? But so regenerative, just the word itself, to me means that, like, my hand is regenerative. There's definitely cells that are sloughing off all day long, but they regenerate new ones because of the entire process of this human body that rebuilds the cells of my hand, right? So at some point, regeneration stops, and that's when your spirit leaves this body. That's the way I see it. The soil is regenerative in nature because of the biology that's in it that wants to continue to grow, all these little nematodes and bacteria and protozoas. And so it seems like there's degrees of regenerativeness. You could get like the maximum regeneration, and then there's like, oh, well, this is somewhat regenerative, but it could be more.
I think a more important standard is better. Just do farming better. Like, I think if you have, say, a 80 cow dairy that sells its milk wholesale to a processor that it doesn't have any control over, just gets a price for its commodity and sells it, Then you have another 80 cow dairy that also has a, what would you call it? A creamery that converts their milk into cheese and ice cream and kefir and all that and sells it to the community. I think that's better. Not that the other farm is bad, but I think it's better if you have more control over that process, because you're earning more of a profit off of your labor.
Yeah.
You're giving more options to your community, and you're becoming more independent as a farm, which is increasing the likelihood that that farm stays in that family longer.
Yeah.
And so I think that's better.
Yeah.
And so you're not going to have a lot of farms going from milking 2,000 cows to 5 years later running 1,000 chicken tractors and grazing beef and pasturing pigs and processing that all themselves and selling it to grandmas all throughout the county. Probably not going to have that. But I think American farms have to start getting better. Start taking more of that dollar, keeping it local instead of sending it to a granary 1 state away to be fed to animals 3 states away that are getting shipped 4 hours to get processed and then flown to California. I don't think I think that's worse than if you control more of that process. So regenerative is a big definition. I think better, like start with better. Because it's not going to happen overnight.
What I'm hearing from you too is I'm almost hearing an aspect of it's coming one way or another.
I don't know. A lot of it is policy.
Yeah.
A lot of this, this system of agriculture has been encouraged by agricultural laws and subsidies and really the desires of Americans. We've been brought up to want cheap food.
Yeah.
We don't really care about quality. That's changing a little bit. But you heard during COVID, a lot of small farms, businesses, exploded. A lot of people were like, hey, we're going to the grocery store and there's no bacon or butter. Can we get it from you? Well, absolutely. A lot of those people, they kind of went away. It got bad there. You can only get 1 pound of bacon, right?
Yeah.
1 pound of butter. If you want more butter, you got to go across town. And people have forgotten that. And they forgot it a year ago. And so the collective American memory is very short.
Yeah.
And the regenerative farming can only grow as fast as the consumer base grows. And so we've seen that happen. The consumer base has grown a little bit, but that's not going to happen overnight,
Well, I want to relate something that I saw last night. We're bringing raw milk into Cadillac.
Oh yeah, I heard you talk about this.
Yeah, it started
That's growing.
out. Remember Mary Galvanic?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I called her one day in the midst of chicken processing. That's when I always get my ideas. And I said, hey, if we were going to bring milk into Cadillac, would you want some? And she said, absolutely. I'll take 2 gallons at my house. But she can't come out to the farm for 2 gallons of milk. Okay, we're coming in Wednesday. My boys do Taekwondo at the National Guard station there on Lake Mitchell, or right in between.
Yeah, by the Cadillac football field.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So the first week we brought 1 gallon or 2 gallons. The second week it was 7, 13. Last night it was 15. Right. And I went last night because there was no Taekwondo, but we still had to bring the milk. And then we were going to go Christmas shopping. So I was there with Jill. And whenever somebody pulled up, I'd get out. It was really cold. And it's right there on the lake. And so I'd just chat with the people. And what I noticed was people had driven from Leroy, Kingsley, all over Cadillac to this location to get 1 gallon of milk or 2 gallons of milk, a carton of eggs. And then Jill is handing them pamphlets. Hey, do you want chickens for next year? Pastured poultry. Are you going to want beef? Are you going to want? So what I noticed was now we've got people that are willing to make a sacrifice for the food that they're eating. And I got to tell you, these people looked good. in the past, when we first started this, we had a couple customers in Cadillac, and I remember it's not Galvanic. It doesn't matter. They've got a nursery business in Grayheck. Mrs. Grayheck would take products from me, but only if I brought them to her door. So I had to bring her, eggs and meat and stuff, but only to her door.
Mm-hmm.
And then I said one time, well, I'm going to have to charge you for delivery. Oh, no, can't have that. So she wanted it so long as I'd bring it there and I'd chat with her for a little while.
Mm-hmm.
She was a lonely, but as soon as she had to pay for it, no, I'll go to the store and get it. And there was another couple of doctors in town that wanted food from us. But then as soon as we wouldn't bring it to their house, they didn't want it so much.
Convenience is a huge thing today.
Yeah.
People want convenience.
But I am seeing people saying, hey, maybe this is a little bit more, there's a little bit more urgency. And I'm saying that tongue in cheek. There's a lot more urgency because I don't forget, what happened. And I think a lot of these people don't forget. But what options did they have? And now we've created this delivery drop site, and they're telling their friends, and we're telling them, hey, we want to get this going. We want a farm here, but we really do need customers to make production farming work again.
Mm-hmm.
So tell your friends. And it's like 1 gallon, 7 gallons, 15 gallons. I need more cows now. I got to buy more cows. So of interest, the man that built this farm could possibly have been a contemporary of your grandfather's. Maybe. This farm was built in 1900.
Okay.
So do those dates kind of line up?
No, he wouldn't have been born yet.
What year was he born? Do you know?
I don't know. He would have been. He might have been 90. So maybe 30, 30, 40 maybe.
Okay. But this farm was built to milk 10 cows. It's a 10 cow dairy. Mm. So they would have 10 cows that they're milking. And that system was really proven. So in 1905, when that building was built, it was state of the art.
And you see a lot of them around here.
You do.
I mean, you see those everywhere.
You do. And it took us a long time before we understood why they milked under the haymow and what that was all about. What was the milk house all about? Why did they have to have that? Mm-hmm. And now that we understand that, here we are milking. We built stanchions in a completely different part of the barn.
Right.
And the guy that designed that barn and built it must be rolling in his grave thinking, what is wrong with you? Are you Irish? Yeah. So we're going to rebuild the milk parlor under the barn and the milk house, and even put in place what they had. They had a tank in there where they would pump water up out of the ground to cool the milk. Mm-hmm. And so we're going to do that. But now we have solar. So we can run a submersible pump, just a tiny submersible pump that will bring up 50-degree water and cool the milk down for us. So, yeah, it's real interesting that everything that I'm doing, and I look for the next place to step. I could step over here and, let's say we're walking in snow, or I can step someplace where nobody stepped. But the well-beaten path, it makes sense, But I couldn't go 1,800 cows now if I wanted to. Mm-hmm. I could never do that. That would be an impossibility for me. Mm-hmm. If I said I want to be the biggest dairy in Missaukee County,
and we're not even the biggest.
Yeah,
I think there's three or four or five that are milk way more than we do in the county alone.
Yeah, but a new farmer could not do that. I could not do that,
and they shouldn't.
No,
that'd be a bad experience.
Like when your place burned down, and I remember that time very well.
You could probably see it from here.
No, we were at the farmers market in Cadillac, and we could smell it. Yeah, and then there was a guy across from us.
That's 15 miles away. Yeah.
and I don't remember this man's name. His first name was Bill something. I think he's gone now. But he come over. He always came over and talked to us. And he says, "You smell that?" And I said, "Yeah, what does that smell?" He says, "Ken DeZeeuw is on fire." And I was new here. And I'm like, "Ken DeZeeuw is on fire? What do you mean Ken
Who's that
DeZeeuw
guy?
on fire?" Well, I knew him, though.
Oh, you did?
I did know
Okay.
him because we had processed chickens for you guys.
Oh, that's right. Yep.
As a matter of fact, this is a good story.
I think I remember loading those in that trailer.
Yeah, we did
I think I
100.
can remember that.
We did 100 chickens for Ken DeZeeuw. And he had called and talked to Jill, said, "I got 100 chickens. Can you guys do them?" And Jill said, "Oh, yeah, I guess we can do them." And then she said, "Can we do 100? I did not sleep the night before. I did not sleep because we had never done chickens like that many. We had one killing cone. So it was one at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And so once we got 2 of them dead, they'd go into the plucker. And
Yeah.
we were heating the water with a propane burner. We didn't have a thermostat on it.
Mm-hmm.
It would get too hot and then too cold, and then we'd have chickens back up, and oh boy.
It sounds like my dad. He likes to go big.
Yeah, right.
If he has a project he likes to do, he goes pretty big.
Yeah.
But that's good.
Well, the other night we talked about, it was a subject that's called thinking outside of the box. And people say that really cavalierly, like, "Well, you need to think outside the box." That's hard to do because our intellect only goes as far as what we know. And so almost you have to trick yourself into thinking, okay, well, I can farm with anti-gravitation boots on. It doesn't really make sense, but it tricks you into thinking of something that you wouldn't necessarily think of. Because I don't think we've scratched the surface on what we have available to us. And I'm very optimistic.
I am too.
But I just always am, because no matter what, can be having a rotten day, but something during that day will kind of intrigue me. Like, hey, there's something to this. We could do something with this. And I am extremely intrigued by the new generation of people that's coming up that's saying, "Don't know why, but I don't want to do that. I want to do this." And they don't, you're able to articulate why you don't want to do it. But in our adult education, we're encountering lots of people who don't exactly know why they want to do this.
And they're not farmers, right?
No, they're
coming
not
from
farmers.
different. Yeah, that's happening a lot lately, which is good. But that's where I say it would be really beneficial for those people to be well versed in regenerative ag, which most of them tend to go towards. I mean, there's not really a movement of people saying, "Hey, I want to farm 2,000 acres of soybeans or whatever." It's they're going to the regenerative Joel Salatin model.
Yeah.
And I think that's awesome. But I think they could learn a lot from conventional farmers in the realm of efficiency and the economics of it. And just the experience of, I mean, if you went and worked on a conventional farm, but you wanted to start a regenerative farm, you would learn a lot. You would experience all the smells you're going to smell and all the acclimate weather and the type of thinking and problem solving skills, how to back up a trailer. You can do that anywhere. Yeah. You don't want to learn that as you're loading pigs for the first time. I mean, that's not the first time you want to have to back a trailer up. So even if it's not a pristine, Virginia regenerative farm, you could learn a lot from any farmer, regardless of how they farm. Yeah. Or you could go there and get what my dad might call a good example of what not to do. You can learn.
Don't want to do.
Yeah, you can learn a lot from
perspective.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. Okay, so for years and years and years before I even set foot on a farm, I had heard there ain't no money in farming. I had heard that, and I still hear it. I still hear little quips like, "Well, if I had $1 million, I'd spend it all on farming." It goes something like that. There's all kinds of little quips like that. So can you talk to us as a guy that's been in both camps, how did things go for you? You don't have to get specific, but how did things go monetarily? Because the numbers, they're important. If you lost money on this and you lose money every year doing it, then you might as well be playing golf.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. So our first year, like I mentioned before, we broke even. And so our second year, we had to pay for feed and chicks before we had any money coming in. We didn't take out a loan for that. I paid for some of that. Maybe my dad paid for some of that. And then he and I were reimbursed after the chicken sold later in the summer. And so the second year we had, I think maybe $5,000 in the bank. And so that was enough to buy all the feed for the next year and all the chicks for the third year. And so this year we already had all the money in the bank and paid cash for feed and chicks and packaging, ice, propane, all that stuff. And so we've got, I'm not sure what we'll come out with this year. Probably around, if I had to guess, once all of it's sold, maybe seven or eight. I haven't taken out any yet for labor. None of us have. So none of us have been compensated for time. It's not a lot of time. I put in the most because I'm the daily chore person.
Yeah.
So I'm brooding them and moving them every day. And then we all process. And then individually, we all work on marketing and selling. But that's mostly my brother and sister. So it's been a slow process. But we knew what we were getting into when we started. Yeah. We're not doing this full time. We're not raising thousands of chickens. It's a side hustle in the summer as of right now. And so this coming year, which will be our fourth year, will probably be the first year where we start paying ourselves. And we've also added to our equipment in the following years. So the first year it was like a plucker, a scalder, knives, I think a freezer. All of the cost of building the chicken tractors, transport crates, waterers, feeders, cutting boards, the scale we use, all that stuff was bought in our first year and broke even first year. Everything we needed to process them and raise them was all paid for. So in the following years, we got some more freezers, some more stainless steel tables, and upgraded our waterers from our cheap 50-cent drinking cups that are made out of Chinesium and broke the first year. We upgraded those to the Plasson style water and stuff like that. Got some more knives, chill tanks, upgraded our chill tank, stuff like that. And so we added to our equipment a lot to where it's a full-fledged chicken processing area that works really efficiently the way we have it set up. And so, the fourth year will probably be the first year where we can take a wage. And that's common usually with any business. They say 5 years. It takes about 5 years to be profitable. If we grew more chickens, we could have done that a lot sooner. But we decided to keep it where it's at because our market wasn't as big as we thought it might be our first year.
So you did 900 the first year.
900 our first year, 600 in year two, and 600 this year.
Okay.
This past summer.
Where did those go? Where did you sell those to?
Those are going to friends and family. My dad bought quite a few. My aunt, she's awesome. She purchases a bunch every year to give away near Thanksgiving at the food distribution through her church. But probably the vast majority of that is 5 chickens here, 6 chickens there, selling to people who are interested in this type of food, which isn't foodies for us, usually, at least not yet. Most of it is people who have tasted the chicken and notice that it's better and have the expendable income to purchase ours because it's more expensive because it's better and it's better for the community. It tastes better. I mean, I think there's more in it. It's more filling. So most of it is just, half a dozen here,
Yeah.
to a bunch of individual people.
I like our chicken as much as I like our steak. I really like it.
I had a big old plate of it, chicken, before I came here tonight.
Yeah.
It was good.
We had steak, hobby steak.
Yeah.
That's they call it, hobby steak. Well, this is thrilling, and I get a ringside seat. I get to drive past your chicken tractors a couple times a week when I go in.
Yeah, they're right by a main road.
Yeah,
a lot of people honk at me during the summertime. A lot of people who know me honk at me. Some people stop by. That's really cool. But yeah, it's a really cool perspective when you're moving chicken tractors and the manure tankers are going by on the road all day. Say, what's Ken's boy doing out there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's you kind of broke the glass ceiling, because I remember, I don't recall this guy's name. It was Kevin something, and he worked for Boscher Dairy up there. You know, he'd been around forever, and he came here and he was saying, well, you know, this is the type of farming you're doing it's fun and everything. You know, it's a good hobby. He says, but you know, if you want to make real money, you got to be doing the real farming. You know, he said to me, and he says, in conventional farming, if guys go organic, that's a sure sign that they're going to go out of business. That's what he told me. And I thought, you know, an older guy, he must know what he's talking about. But he didn't really know anybody that had gone organic and then went out. And I think we have a couple of mutual acquaintances that have gone organic and are actually doing pretty well in the milking business.
Yeah.
So I know that was an interesting perspective, that you go organic because you can't hack it in regular farming.
I've heard that a lot too. I wonder if that came from the fact that it seems like a lot of people who went the organic route were people who, they're usually smaller dairies. I mean, you don't see a whole lot of 2,000 cow dairies going organic. Right. It was a lot of 60, 80, 100, 160 cow dairies going that way, because the conventional system was kind of pushing them out. Because you really, I mean, if you're milking 60 cows and you're selling it to the plant, you can't really make money doing that if you're growing conventional milk and selling it wholesale as a commodity. And so a lot of those guys went into organic because you get a premium price.
Yeah.
And so I don't think a lot of them went out of business because they were bad farmers. I think a lot of them went out of business because the system, even in organic, I mean, bigger is better. And so I think a lot of them were just small dairies that the system made it so that they couldn't really be profitable in that system. I think that might be where that stigma came from. But like you said, there's a couple organic dairies around here that do a great job.
Yeah, DeCam.
Yeah, their animals look really good.
Yeah, he does a good job. All right, so with that said, where is this going for you? Where do you see yourself in a couple? You've got a plan that you feel like sharing.
We don't really have a trajectory that we're following. We grew more chickens our first year than we did our second year because we realized that was a lot of work. And all of us, there's 4 of us siblings who are running that together. We all work full time at the farm. We all work overtime there. My brother Abram right now is probably putting in 60, 65 hours a week, and that much or more in the summertime. And so it was stressful, very stressful our first year to find a balance of how we're going to do it. I had the most flexible schedule, so I was chicken guy. I was managing them and learning how to pasture them so that they're healthy and grow well and all that, learning all the ins and outs and the tricks and the things that you can't read in the books that you need to know to do it well.
Tricks of the trade. And
so that was a rough time. It went well, but it was a lot of work the first year. Less stressful the second year. This past year was like, okay, we've done this before. We have a plan to follow. The future, I think it'd be really cool to make a living farming that way. And I know it's possible. So I think in the future, I think I might want to try to earn a full-time income off of that type of agriculture. Maybe grazing beef, or it might look like, okay, we have a lot of heifers that are at a lot of different farms. Maybe in 10 years, we decide we're going to start grazing them instead of having them inside of a barn. So maybe we start converting a small acreage of our tilled ground over to pasture, or we start sowing pasture cover crops or something like that and start grazing conventional heifers on pasture and start getting into that. So maybe that's one route. One of us could probably work full-time doing that.
Yeah.
If, 15 years down the road, we decide we want to start doing that. One of us could probably full-time just graze cattle if we wanted to do that. So that's an option. There's a lot of different paths the farm could take, but it'll need to get out of debt before those options are viable. Because right now, the only option is really doing what it does best, which is make milk.
Yeah.
And we're really good at making milk. Really good at that. I think our average is like 95 pounds per cow per day.
What does that equal in gallons for the listening audience?
12-ish.
12 gallons?
12 and a half. Yeah.
Per cow?
Per cow per day.
Okay, so they're getting about like 4 gallons per milking. They're giving up. You milk them 3 times a day.
Yeah. We've got that part down, and we're really good at it. And so if the milk price is right, we can really capitalize on that efficiency. And once the debt's gone, Dad has a lot more options as to what's possible.
So 1,800 cows.
Milking 1,800.
Milking 1,800 times 12. That's your total gallonage per day. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep. When we farm about 3,500 acres, about 3,500 acres or so. And so there's a lot of opportunity there. If you don't have to milk 1,800 cows, if you say we'll milk 1,500, and now we have this acreage that's available for something else.
Yeah.
Or there's a lot of options. I also draw, so I do that on the side as well. I could see myself making an income off of that primarily, also potentially, but I would still want to grow my own food. So I would still want to raise chickens and maybe a couple pigs and turkeys and all that stuff. So I haven't really nailed down exactly what I want to do, but
it's a group effort. So you guys come together and the family wants to stay together working this program.
Yeah.
Okay.
We get along.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
That's good. It's really good.
We're really blessed in that our family, we can stand each other. We actually enjoy each other's company, and our parents are great, and everyone is loving and reasonable, and there's not there's no infighting or quarrels, which is pretty rare. So I'm aware that we're really blessed there, and it's a good situation to be in.
That's good. And my family, we come together and we have most fun when we're together. So that's really good. I think it's from when the kids were little, they still like each other's company, and me and Jill just kind of sit back and watch them and listen to their conversations. And now they've got little kids too, so it's pretty neat. And it's pretty neat that they all come back to the farm. That's one of my reasons for wanting to keep this place, is because it's a heritage. And so you guys are building a heritage. That's really neat. I thought that you were going to break off and move to an 80 and operate that.
Yeah. There's a 80-acre parcel that my dad had in mind that would be a really good spot to start experimenting. So running poultry, maybe fence it in and seed some pasture, or that was a piece that's almost all of it's tillable. And so last year he experimented with some different cover crops. If you read Dirt to Soil by Gabe Brown, a lot of that is no-till cover crops, doing cash cropping, but leaving something growing in the soil all the time and growing your soil through a variety of different plants and animal impact, grazing and that sort of thing. So he thought that would be a good spot to potentially do that at.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of options. There's a lot of stuff we could do. I think it'd be cool to graze some animals. I think that could be cool.
That's fun. I love doing that.
I think so.
When you think about how much they eat and then how much they give you, if they eat 30 pounds of dry matter and they're going to give you 50 pounds of manure, that's just an incredible machine working out there. And they're going out and doing the harvest for you. And then they break up the soil. They really do a nice job. And what we found is you can have a mixed herd. Like you don't want a herd of all 2-year-old calves because there's nobody to teach the new guys what to do. You want older cows and then you put new ones in with them. And then they know where to go. When this gate's open, we walk through this gate.
Right.
Oh, she walks through, I'll walk through.
Yep.
And they become sort of like partners in this whole thing. They work for me. Same thing with my pigs. They seem to be my like little employees.
Yep.
I want you guys to dig up that field of turnips out there. Will you do that? Yeah, we'll do that, Mark.
They're your co-laborers.
Yeah. They're happy to do it.
Yep.
Yeah. I love what I'm doing. And every day something else opens up and I just get a real kick out of it. Nice feeling.
Yep. Yeah. The farm is, I would describe it as an aircraft carrier.
Yeah.
It can't turn on a dime.
No.
So if we are going to transition into other things, it's going to be, at least for the farm itself, is going to be slow. It's going to take time.
Yeah.
I mean, that facility is designed to milk cows, make milk. And every barn is designed for a certain size animal, right? And your parlor is designed for a certain size animal, and it milks cows. It doesn't milk goats, And so it's very, very specific. But I think I'm very intrigued and want to expand into grazing, more pastured poultry, stuff like that. I think that's valuable, and I think it's good.
Yeah, I do too. What's the trick for me is when I pick a new process that I want to go into, I try to think, okay, how is this going to dovetail with what I'm doing already? How is my cast off from one process going to benefit another process? And they all seem to fit together really well. We don't have any odd animals on this farm that just don't fit in. They just don't seem to have a place here. There's really nobody like that. Even our dogs seem to fit in. They give us something, but then they get something in return. And the humans too. They give something, but they get quite a bit in return. Pigs, cows, everybody's getting and giving all the time. And our main crop here would be, well, according to Craig Schaff, it would be microbes in the soil. That's our main crop. And I agree with that. But probably the next main crop would be grass.
Right.
We have several species of grass that just grow, like out of control grow. And the grasses get better every year because of the practices that we use, like grazing. Helps the grasses to grow. You'd think the opposite, but it actually does help it. All right. This is really encouraging. And I think, I haven't been reading.
Oh, yeah.
I haven't been reading at all. But I think that the message in its entirety is a message of optimism for the coming year. So it's like, I guess, supposedly we're waiting for, President Trump to get elected again or something, or maybe you're on the other side and you want Joe Biden 2.0 and that's going to fix everything. I don't think so. I think the fix for our families and for ourselves, our personal development, our health, it's right in front of us. We just have to do it.
Mhm.
And like I've got a lot of balls in the air right now. You do. But there was a time when I brought little chicks home and we struggled with just keeping chickens because, oh, they get out, they fly over. What now? What do you do? What do you do now? They fly over. And I remember being like, how do people keep chickens? They keep flying out. They get hitting the road, and then I learned, oh, you clip the wings and then they don't fly out. So we've learned these processes and it's taken some time, but now we seem to have a pretty good juggling act going, and it all is pretty calm and under control and quite profitable. Actually, it's working out. And then we found that we can go in different directions, and the value adding, I think, is where it's at. I think that's really where it's at. Like,
Yeah.
if you can grow a chicken, good, but if you can grow a chicken and then get it ready for the plate, double good.
Mhm.
You know, if you have to bring it to me to process it for you, that's a lot of slippage in the system. You lose, well, $4.75 per bird if you have to do that, plus your time and energy and everything.
Right.
So great, good message. Good message. I think I'm kind of drained. I can't think of anything else that I want to ask you. I think maybe we've gone over enough stuff. Let's see if there's anything that sticks out that people are asking about. Well, we've got Haven here. Or maybe we will. Okay. How are your cows? How are your cows?
They're good.
Good. Okay.
Good. They're all bundled up. Everything is buttoned down for the storm. Got a snowstorm rolling through Michigan right now. And it's going to get cold in the next couple of days. But
Jay-Z's with us. Sean Wise. Grassroots and Grains. Keith S. Abundant Living. That's about it. Okay. We didn't have a lot of questions there. Yeah, we got a big storm going through. Depends who you listen to, but I've heard between 1 and 78 inches of snow. So it could be
give or
devastating.
take a couple inches.
Crazy. They used to be able to kind of tell you what was going to happen. Now it's just, you're all going to die.
Yeah.
So get ready to die. Okay, so you have some contact information here that's of note. Haven has a YouTube channel, and I highly recommend it. It's Haven DeZeeuw.
Yep, just my name.
And it's HAVENDE, capital Z, EEUW. I'll say that again. DE, capital Z, EEUW.
It's a Dutch last name there.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Around here, we have lots of Dutch people.
Yeah.
Luckily, there's Irish people around here, so I fit right in.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, lots of videos on there. I tried to document our process of doing pastured poultry from nothing.
Yeah,
so
that was an excellent video too, by the way.
Well, thank
excellent.
you. Thank you.
You had the numbers in there, and I've used those numbers.
Yeah.
You know, they're good numbers.
Yeah, you're talking about that breaking down the costs. Yep. Yeah, I got a video breaking down the costs of our first year by the numbers, what we bought, how much we paid, how much we made. That was a video I couldn't find when I was trying to learn how to do this. And so I'm like, I'm going to keep track so I can make that video, because that's a question I had that I couldn't find an answer to. So, yep.
Joel's a big numbers guy too. Joel Salatin, real big numbers guy.
Yeah.
And I didn't know his numbers, but a mutual friend of ours worked for him, and he said that both you guys' numbers are very, very close.
Okay.
Very reasonably close.
Yep.
Good enough for me. We do a lot of pastured poultry too. I have 5 tractors now. I had 30. I was running 30 chicken tractors, and that was a lot of chickens. I think I'm going to hold at 6, and that'll be my I want to plateau right there. That's good enough.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to go too crazy. I just don't like doing too much of any one thing because then it limits what else I can do.
Right.
I just get a little antsy if I'm doing too much of one thing. I want to have time to.
Yeah. And you want it to be an
things as
enjoyable lifestyle.
Mhm.
That's my goal, is to
Yeah.
build a lifestyle that's productive and enjoyable. Just
Mhm.
try to find a balance there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I've got other things that I want to do as well that
Mhm.
we haven't even broke ground on, but I'm excited when I think about those things. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's still a kick. All right, lad. Well, I hope everybody, next time we come in contact with you all, it will be after Christmas. So this coming Sunday is Christmas. I hope everybody, I'm wishing everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And yeah, appreciate it.
Good deal.
Okay.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. It's good to know you.
Yeah.
No good. All right. Good night, everybody. Remember, anyone can farm. That's good. Look at our numbers. Do you believe those numbers?
What numbers?
There was 11 people. It's always consistent. It's behind that white thing right now. It's always between 11 and 19. Always right in there. But yet I go places and people know me. I kind of don't believe these numbers.
A lot of people see it after it goes